Hi, today's presentation will be on nature versus nurture. Some of the things we will go over today is the history of nature versus nurture, what is the nature theory, what is the nurture theory, epigenetics, and current views. So what is the nature versus nurture debate? We have all heard it, and I'm sure we have all decided what side of the fence we are on. Well, the nature versus nurture debate is about the relative influence of an individual's innate attributes as opposed to the experiences from the environment one is brought up in determining individual differences in physical and behavioral traits. Basically, are we who we are because of our genes, biology, or our environment? For me as a parent, I have always believed or maybe hoped that we have control over the environment and what will determine how our children turn out. The nature versus nurture debate has been a very discussed topic for over 100 years. There have been many important events that have influenced the topic over the years. In 1859, Charles Darwin came out with his theory of evolution. This was the catalyst for the nature versus nurture debate. Gregor Mendel's discovery of genetics in 1868 helped to support the nature side of the debate, and in 1869, the nature versus nurture term was coined by Francis Galton. And of course, the Bobo doll experiment in 1961 also had an impact on the nature versus nurture debate when the experiment showed how aggression in children could be learned. These are only a few out of thousands of moments. Nature is all that brings with himself into the world. Nurture is every influence from without that affects him after his birth. Francis Galton. This is the famous quote that helped fuel the beginning of the debate, but definitely not the end. Not everyone believed that nature was solely responsible for who we are. Give me a dozen healthy infants, well formed, and my own specified world to bring them up in, and I'll guarantee to take any one at random and train him to become any type of specialist I might select: doctor, lawyer, artist, merchant, chief, and yes, even beggar, man, and thief, regardless of his talents, penchants, tendencies, abilities, vocations, and race of his ancestors. James B. Watson. Watson was a pioneer in psychology and played an important role in developing behaviorism. Nature. People become who they are through their genetics. When we think about genetics, we think about height, hair color, and eye color, but could be shy because of genetics, or love to read, or even an alcoholic because of their genetics. There have been many famous supporters of nature throughout the years. I'm sure you've all heard of Darwin, Socrates, Plato. These are just a few of the supporters for nature. They all believed we are programmed to be who we are before we are even born. I have added a link to the science behind how parents affect child development. It's a TED Talk by Yuko Makuda. I really recommend that you take the time to watch it. It definitely changed my perspective on the topic. She is a professor of psychology at the University of Colorado Boulder. She specializes in development cognitive neuroscience. She attended Stanford, Carnegie Mellon University, and Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She is also a parent. In this clip, she states to be a better parent, to mold our children into successful and happy adults. and she says that it's impossible to do that. She goes on to say that nurture, the environment, has no effect on the outcome of who we become, but explains how our genetics give us a different perspective for the events that help mold us. She did a very good job at giving the example of how two siblings can be raised in the same environment and by the same parents, yet turn out so differently. This TED Talk caught my attention because I have a young child. As parents, we all strive to do what we think is best for our children and help set them up to become happy and successful adults. She has definitely given me a different viewpoint on how much nature impacts who my child will become. However, my favorite takeaway from her closing is if we can embrace the complexity of our children's development, that can transform how we approach those parenting decisions we face each day and empower us to realize how much more there is to having a child than trying to shape a specific outcome. So that was the nature side, the genetic side. Nurture is people become who they are through their environment. And examples of that are my mom read to me every night, and I learned the love of reading. My values came from my parents. These are just some examples of how one might suggest that nurture or our environment help to shape us. Famous supporters of nurture were James B. Watson, Chomsky, Bandura. Today, both sides are starting to agree that it is not either or, but more of an and. Both nurture and nature play a huge role in shaping who we are. A new field is evolving that focuses on just that. Epigenetics. Epigenetics is a study of how the environment and other factors can change the way that genes are expressed. Think of it this way. You may have the gene to be 6 feet tall, but if your environment does not provide the necessary nutrition and requirements for it, you will never reach 6 feet. So, epigenetics basically is the study of how your environment can turn on and off your traits. So, in order to reach your full potential, you have to have the correct environment. So, my conclusion is as a parent, I hope that nurture plays a bigger role in deciding how we turn out. However, the more we are finding out each year that genetics may play a larger role than many believed, including myself. I was very fascinated by all the studies about twins, which is touched on in the TED Talk about how siblings can be genetically the same and raised in different environments, and yet they still um, have a lot of the same traits. So I guess there's still so much more to learn, um, but I definitely believe that it's more of an and not one or the other, and that they play off each other. Thank you very much. That is my presentation. Here are some of my cited works in case you would like to see some of the articles that I read.